Welcome back to Inside Marketing Design. I'm your host, Charlie Marie. I'm the creative director at ConvertKit, and in this show, I'm giving you an in-depth look at how brand and marketing design functions in a variety of different tech companies. We dive in to the brand principles, the processes, the projects, and how they get their work done. In today's episode, I'm speaking to Julia Jaskólska, who is the senior marketing designer at Buffer. Buffer is a software company that makes tools to help small businesses build their brands on social media, but they're also well known for being one of the pioneers in the remote workspace. They were one of the first companies that I ever heard of with a fully distributed team, with transparent salaries, with 4-day work weeks. I have a lot of respect for the way they run their business, and so naturally I was also very excited to dive in and learn more about the marketing design function of it specifically. In true Buffer fashion, Julia was very transparent throughout our conversation and shared a lot of great insights about how she gets work done as the solo marketing designer on a team of 80 people. You're going to hear Julia talk about this more in the episode itself, but one of the tools that she uses to get her work done effectively as the solo marketing designer is our sponsor, Webflow. Webflow is a no-code platform for building websites that gives designers like us the power to bring our ideas to life without needing separate development resources. It's very intuitive. It creates clean, production-ready code in the end, even though you're not actually hand coding it yourself. I've been using it at ConvertKit on some projects, and I've been using it on my personal website for many years. In fact, the Inside Marketing Design website is built using Webflow, and it took me just a few weekends to put it together. You can give it a try for yourself at insidemarketingdesign.co/Webflow. But for now, let's get into the episode and take a look inside marketing design at Buffer. Welcome, Julia. Really excited to have you on the show today and to dive into marketing design at Buffer. I don't know if you know this, but I spent about half my career being the only designer on a team. And so I know your situation well, but I also know that every designer, every solo marketing designer, it's different, right? Depending on the company that you work at. So I'm looking forward to learning about marketing design at Buffer today. Shall we start with you talking about the makeup of the team? So we know you're the only marketing designer, but where does your role fit within the company? How many other designers are on the team? Talk us through that.
Yeah, sure. Excited. So I am an only designer, but we have at the design team 6 designers at all. And the design team is divided for me as a marketing designer, and then the rest of designers there in the product. But the product, not like every designer works on the certain tool. It's more like in the areas. Mm-hmm. So there are some areas that are overlapping with marketing more. So that would be more like growth or onboarding and on all of those areas. So I am at the design team. At the same time, I'm in the marketing. So technically, I report to Tyler, who is the VP of design. And he's also helping me with my career. And I have one-on-one with him. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to day-to-day work, I work at the marketing, and I mostly work with product marketers and copywriters and developers. So they sit in the marketing.
So it's sort of like the marketing team maybe is where your work comes from, but your manager and the person managing your career growth is the VP of design.
Yes, that's correct. We also have weekly meetings, and we are all open for the feedback. So I think it's always super helpful to get some eyeballs from someone who is a designer, even if not at the marketing. But I think this is super helpful to not be completely alone at the team.
Yeah, that's good. That's really important. I think for a long time at ConvertKit, we didn't do design meetings. I didn't meet with the product designers and get their feedback on my work, and I really missed it. I'm really glad we do now, and it's good to hear that you do that.
Yeah, this is super valuable always to hear other perspectives.
Yeah. Let's talk about your work and what you focus on. I find that usually what the marketing designer focuses on in their work is what the marketing team focuses on in the way they market the product, but not always. I don't know if that's true for you, and if so, what are the main types of projects that you work on?
I think it's kind of similar because we are fully digital product. I think this is kind of obvious that most of the projects are also digital. So it's mostly about website or product launches. There are a bit of social media assets that we need for certain launch to have the most impact for each of the rollout. But it happens that we also have like some prints. I'm always super excited about those because my background is actually like printmaking. So this is from what I graduated. So it's always super excited. And it's also super exciting for everyone because we are like fully remote team, digital and everything. So if we produce something that you actually can touch, like everyone is always so excited about it. And so we had beginning of the Q1, I think, we had like a pretty big campaign. It was about the engagement with the customer, and we created like a swag boxes. There was like a bathrobe, and then when people that my team noticed that we produced like bathrobe because it was about like difficult times, COVID and so on, we wanted them to be like, okay, you have to just like chill out, and we have everything covered, and we just like go and and rest in the buffer bathrobe. And then folks at my team noticed that, and they were like, "Oh, why do I don't have that one?" And that was like, okay, so we have to produce more of the prints
for the
team too. Yeah, and it was great. But I think for me, like no matter if this is like digital or print, I spend most of my time on invisible part, which I called. So this is like planning, thinking about the success metrics, like what actually is the problem that we solve. So I think the most important work, no matter if this is like print or digital, this is always like Dropbox paper and then thinking about like what you're actually trying to do, because it often happens that at the end of the day, when you work on something without having the success metrics set or things like that, or actually the problem defined, then at the end of the day, you find out that you actually have like a big detour and you're doing completely different things. So.
Yes, I definitely want to dig into success metrics and all of that because I love when a designer is especially focused on those things. But maybe before we get into that, can we talk about the things you're responsible for? So it sounds like you are responsible for some success metrics. Are you also responsible for like the buffer marketing side, for example? What are your main responsibilities?
Okay, that's an interesting one because it really depends on the project. I think that our structure is pretty flat. So currently I'm also an owner of the website, so I'm responsible for success metrics of the projects too, and I'm also responsible for delivering the work. So it really depends on the project. So if I'm an owner, I'm responsible for the metrics and also for making the work done. So yeah, I would say it really depends, but yeah, success metrics are included in that.
So might there be projects where someone else is the owner of like a landing page or something like that, and you're the person like doing the design work for it, but they are owning the success metrics and the delivery.
Yeah, exactly. And then they prepare mostly the briefs, and I'm helping them. And if I am the owner, it's mostly me preparing the briefs and writing down what are the problems we are trying to solve and why this is important. And yeah, so it really depends on who is the owner, but it's really like a collaboration.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's dig into that a little more then. How does a project, first of all, how does it get decided which projects get worked on at Buffer? And then how does it get decided who's going to be the owner of each?
Oh, yeah. So we have the OKRs, that's a framework for the entire company. So this is super helpful for us to know what is the priority for us to work. We have the one metric for the entire company, and then it spreads down to certain areas. So we treat that as the, I don't know, like North Star for our work. And then we also think about what are the product launches and what is the timeline for the product. And then we try to see what we should work first, what would be the most impactful, what campaigns we can do around the product launch to maximize its impact. Then when it comes to who works on what, I think that everyone has some like interests and I think this just happens automatically. I don't know, like for instance, Ash is great in content and he loves podcasts, so he always tackles that. And then Mike gets more into the product marketing, so it just like happens like that. And then me in the website. And
so there's not like there's one person being a program manager or something, like, I don't know, deciding what gets worked on and like assigning it to people. It's more like you meet as a group and have this discussion. I'm guessing that maybe the like head of marketing or someone like that would have the final say, right? In what happens.
Yeah, that's for sure. But we are now in this like tricky situation that we are hiring a new VP of marketing because we don't have now. So we are like, no, the boss for ourselves, which is like we have to
right. And you make it happen. That's good. That's good. I like that.
Like a lot of growth happens, when you're in the area that you are not super fluent in. So that's great, and I think we are doing great.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. With OKRs, do you set them or like work on a quarterly cadence then? Are you sort of planning what work we're going to do over the next 3 months and then who's going to own what and making it happen?
Yeah, exactly. So every quarter we work on the new ones, and then they are mostly aligned with the product first because we are a product-driven company. And then we set hours. Yeah, and then we think about the project. We usually list them down, and then we pick like, okay, I think that this project will be more impactful for the certain key results, and based on that we prioritize which one should we work, and then the order of the projects.
Can we talk through maybe a recent project that you worked on, or maybe it was a recent product launch, and about what marketing went into it? I would just love to hear sort of start to finish. Okay, this thing came up for the product and we decided to do this, and how you got it done. We want to get nerdy and into the details, so like don't feel like you're going too deep, because I mean that doesn't exist on this show.
Yeah, so maybe I will talk about the new homepage that we launched some time ago, but this I think is a great example to show how like the classic workflow would look like. Buffer is a social media platform. We have currently 3 main tools, which is like publishing, analytics, and engagement. But we are kind of positioned in the past that we are only like a scheduling tool, and we wanted to change this perception of Buffer. But it was hard because our homepage was still the publish page, and so people didn't see that we have also analytics and engagement tools. It was a bit tricky because of the conversion, and we were afraid of changing it, but we knew that this is needed. So we defined like what's the problem, because that was like purely the perception problem, also the problem of the UX, because it's just like the navigation of on the website was just like off. And so we wrote down all of the problems, and then we also set like success metrics, and we set the A/B test. And then we had Spencer, who was like a website manager, and he helped with writing the copy. But my collaboration with him was always like super close. We were like brainstorming both on the copy and on the design, and also like on the success metrics too. So we put together the design. It was like a few iterations, and then we shipped it to test. And then of course it wasn't like a closed case, because we were waiting still for the data to come and see if this actually was a success for the problem that we set. If the solution solved that, and also if the success metric was okay. And we saw that it was a success, because we saw over 20% increase in monthly recurring revenue.
That is definitely a success. Like, to know as well that how cool as a designer to know that your work played a big part in that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's why I like getting into the data as a designer. I think it's really validating.
Yeah, it resonates.
on your work and on the value of design. And how long of a time frame did you have to work on this homepage? How long did it take?
So I think for design itself, it was about 2 weeks, but it included all of the conversation, because I really try to avoid the waterfall effect that I have copy and then I just like create based on the copy. Of course, I'm inspired.
You want to have
yes, exactly. Yeah. So there was like a lot of back and forth, and it takes time too. So I would say like 2 weeks, and then before that, I think Spencer also had like 1 or 2 weeks to think through the messaging and the general direction.
So around a month for this, like the design of the new homepage.
Yeah, but it was a big project, so we didn't want to hurry with this one.
That's funny though that you think that a month is like not a hurry, because I've heard from other people things taking much longer than that, and like we've had projects at ConvertKit that take much longer than that too. So I think a month to get a new homepage is a really good timeline, honestly.
Okay, that's good to hear from other perspective.
You mentioned that this project came about because there was perception that you were only a publishing tool, right? Where did that come from? Did it come from user research? Did it come from what you were hearing people saying about Buffer? Just curious to know more about
Yeah,
that.
it was mostly from user research, and so we ran some surveys. Mostly our product marketers talk pretty often with our customers, and they ask like how do you see this or that, and also this comes from the tickets in the support team. You can also see like people ask for certain things, and we're like, oh, but we have that, and then we're like, okay, something is wrong.
Isn't that funny, right? How you have to like repeat things so often to get people to understand. We launched a free plan at ConvertKit like, I don't even know how long ago now, over a year ago, and we still have people being like, oh, I guess I'll start with MailChimp because it's free. And we're like, no, but we have a free plan too. You could start here too.
Yeah.
But we still need to get it into people's minds because we didn't have one for so long.
Yeah.
So I hear you on
that.
Yeah,
that's tricky.
Sounds like it worked though. And you said you ran this as an A/B test. So it was the new design versus the old one is what you were testing, right?
Yes, exactly. So the publish as a buffer publish as a homepage versus like all the products shown on the homepage. Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you do often? Test a new design versus an old one to like validate it, I guess, or only for big important things like the homepage?
We do try do that because I think it's like kind of sometimes we test the entire page or the entire flow. Most recently, we changed the entire flow, so we skip the pricing because now we have like the funnel like sign up. You click the CTA, then it goes to pricing page, and then from the pricing page you pick the plan, and then you start a trial or free in certain plan. And so we wanted to skip this and push everyone to free. So this was definitely an A/B test because it was like huge change for everything. So we did test that. When we have some like smaller changes to I will update I don't know the image somewhere, we usually don't test it because this is time consuming and it's not always, but then we plan more changes later this year, and we definitely want to A/B test something because it's not even like reducing the risk, but also knowing that the direction you take it's right.
Yeah.
So this is super helpful for me to, for instance, like learn which design works better, and if my hypothesis that I say I would draw X, that is actually the right hypothesis, and maybe I should draw Y.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love learning from A/B tests as a designer. It's one of my favorite things to take learnings as well and apply it to other things. Or like, I feel like every piece of data you get can help you make better decisions for projects in the future as well, which is cool. Yeah. And do you have like a data team or someone that you're working with on this? Like, who is the one running this test and like looking at the data and making a call and, you know, on when it reaches statistical significance and all of that? How does that work for you?
Yeah, good question. We have Matt who helps with data, and he's responsible for the website, and also like seeing the impact on the funnel that I mentioned. So definitely it's not like the designer is alone there. It's great that we have access to Mixpanel where we can see all of the changes, but it's not like we have to really understand fully everything what happens there. So for instance, like I like to take a peek in there and see like how this performs, but it doesn't mean that I have to really understand everything and know everything about data.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense. I love that you have access to it though, because it's getting you close to the data. That's cool. What service do you use to run these A/B tests?
So I think we have some internal tool. I think that our engineering team built that. So we called it Albert, but this is not any like name for the tool that you can.
I love it. It just gave it a name, like a person's name.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I'm hearing from a lot of people when I ask about A/B testing that internal tools is generally what happens. And I don't know. I think that might be what we need to do at ConvertKit as well, because we've not had much success with, tools like Google Optimize or something like that. It just, we're not getting the right data from it, or they don't seem to be running correctly. Okay. I'm hearing that we might need to build our own internal tool. Speaking of tools though, let's go into a little more about what tools are involved as part of your marketing design process. Drop some names.
Yeah. Okay. So Dropbox. Yeah.
Dropbox. Okay. And you said Dropbox Paper before as well.
Paper.
So is that your main like documentation tool that you use too, rather than Google Docs, for example?
Yeah, exactly. So Dropbox Paper is a tool where everything actually happens. We start from design briefs, and then the design briefs actually includes everything, all of the napkin notes, all of the research, all of the explorations, all of the feedback that we find. And then really quickly it becomes like another Slack channel, because just people go there and comment and write in line. And so this is like, it's really interesting to see how this paper doc then evolves. So I would say this is the place where the invisible design happens. And then when it comes to like moving pixels, which I call so like the design tool, I like to use Affinity Designer. This is the tool that is magical for me. I was looking for the tool that gives me this freedom of actually having rasters and vectors and then everything in one. So it's like having Photoshop and illustration in one tool, but at the same time, like actually I can just like do whatever that I can draw there. And this is like super important for me. I know that there are some designers that use Figma entirely. I don't know how you do that, but
I'm one of them.
So kudos for you. I cannot. I think that is mostly because of my background. Like I like to have illustration that I can directly on the web layout. Like I can just directly change because I see the composition is off, and I cannot just like predict that it will work when I have this on iPad. And also Affinity Designer has like a great app for the iPad. So I usually
I've heard that.
Draw there the illustration, and then it's all like work really seamlessly. And it also has like a huge downside, which is of course collaboration. And we are a fully remote company, and this is difficult because it's not like you have just you're clicking on the link and everything opens in there. I think like Figma made us all lazy, because in the past it was normal that you're like passing the file to someone and someone was opening there, and we had like a Dropbox folders and everything was tidy and it wasn't a problem. And now I notice that everything that isn't a link, it's already a problem. You have to download something. There is something that is like kind of worrying me in this, because I strongly believe that everything should be the easiest possible, but at the same time, I don't know, like there is something off in this level, like it's always a problem when I send someone Dropbox link, for instance, even if they have the tool, like they won't open it, and I don't know, like I have some theory that it's just like Figma is great, but it just creates some bad habits too.
Interesting. I love it coming in with a hot take. Do the product designers on the Buffer team use Affinity Designer as well? Like, are you able to share files with them if needed?
No, they only have Figma. So I think this is also what complicates stuff. And so now I'm working on creating like a library with all of the elements, and even like some blocks that we can build quickly the website. So maybe this is my hypothesis, that maybe then I can still keep working in Affinity Designer and also have people able to move the blocks, and maybe even like some non-designer people to like build simple layouts from ready-made blocks, so they don't have to open the Affinity Designer.
Interesting. I like hearing this. I like that it's different as well, because usually I do hear Figma in response to like, what tools do you use? So I really appreciate your hot take about Julia. What about the website itself? Do you have a developer on the team that you work with on building that? Do you build it? What system does that use? Talk us through that.
Yeah, sure. So our main website, so all of the important pages that are impactful for conversion, a lot of the business metrics are built by a developer. So we have a developer at the team. But we also use Webflow for quick campaigns, and this I usually build. So we have like those both directions. We also try to implement Prismic for headless CMS. So this will be something between Webflow and static page. I have some high hopes for this tool, because I'm sometimes afraid of letting people into Webflow, into the designer, because it's like super easy to just like change the class, and so I think
and then everything screws up across the site. Yep.
So even if I have all of the guidelines written in Notion, like how to do it, I still can sleep when I share the credential with someone. It's not that I don't trust, but it's just like yeah, it's just easy just to do it by accident. It also happens to me that I change something and then I see something floating in the other place. We will build more and more in Prismic, because we use Prismic for the CMS, but not for like the layouts that non-technical teammates can build from. So that will be something new.
Gotcha. Can you give me an example of something you might build in Webflow versus having the developer build on the main site?
When there are like campaigns because something happens in the world, I don't know, like with the COVID or Black Lives Matter movement. So those are like campaigns that we have to ship fast. And so then I want to avoid like all of the handoff. I want to like build something quickly. And then I even don't use any actual tool because I design directly in Webflow, maybe just like a new logo or just like an illustration. So this is just like super quick for us to build. And then for the developer, those are all of the pages that we know that will stay with us for longer.
Yep.
That we maybe will run some A/B tests in there. So this is like the difference. We have like the entire flowchart to know like if someone wants to build some new project, which tool you should use. And we also have there in Prismic, and we just know some use case to start exploring this one.
I love that. Okay, so when someone like wants to kick off a project, there's this flowchart they can work down to decide, okay, is this going to be part of the main site? Is Yulia going to build it in Webflow? Are we going to implement the headless CMS?
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly.
I like that. Sounds like a good system for a remote company to have as well. Avoids a meeting, right, to discuss it. They can just go through the flowchart and decide themselves.
Yeah, exactly. You knew the reason.
I feel like I heard you mention Notion before, that you had some documentation in Notion about using Webflow. That's interesting to me to hear you that you use Notion and Dropbox Paper. Where do those two tools come in for you, and like what do you use each one for?
Notion actually has two use cases, and the first one is like the wiki for the entire company. You can find all the information about everything. Actually, it's like huge library that, you know, you go from one article to the another article and there is like there's no end. The other one is for making project visible, so it's kind of like maybe Asana, maybe like Jira, so you can see every single project that everyone in the company works currently on. And then Paper is more for communication, more for like planning certain things, but all of the papers should be linked into the Notion. So if someone is like, okay, I'm curious what Yulia is working now, so they can go there and check, and also they should find a way to find the brief and all of the conversation that happens around certain project.
So it sounds like Notion is more like the hub, and it links out to paper docs or files and things like that. And it also sounds like Notion is the project management tool, which was another thing I was going to ask about, is like, how do you manage projects? How do you stay on track and, I don't know, assign tasks and work together? So yeah, Notion answers that, I guess. Anything more to say on that?
Yeah, we also have Jira, of course, for more like development work, just for the developer to make it all easier. Like, okay, those are only my projects. So, and this also links to product engineers, because they also work in Jira. So we still have some tools that are outside of Notion, more for, I think, planning for the individual, not for the company visibility.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe the split. So you will, when there's a new page to build for the main marketing site, one that is going to be part of the flow, you know, so it's going to stick around. Maybe it's one you want to A/B test. You will put it in Jira for the developer to work on it from there?
Yes, exactly. Sometimes it happens that they do that on their own. They put it to Jira, because when actually the new page is coming, it's usually a bigger project. It's not like a tiny thing. So this is like mostly visible, and then oftentimes it happens to me that, okay, I see something is off, and so then I place it in Jira, so I don't have to like message them every time. It's just like easy for everyone. Just like, okay, there is a place to
Yep, submit a ticket for the change that needs to happen. That makes a lot of sense. Going back to the this homepage design as an example of a project, you said you worked really closely with the person who was writing the copy, right? And you would both feed off each other to determine the structure of the page and the messaging, and they gave you feedback on the design as well. Who else is a stakeholder in a project like that you made sure you got feedback from, and how did that process work?
So for sure that would be VP of design. Actually, all of the conversation happens like transparently. So
anyone can give feedback.
Anyone. Exactly. Yeah. We oftentimes also ask advocacy team, so they are aware that the changes are coming, and if they can see something might cause, like, I don't know, more tickets, because we don't want that. So everything is like transparent. So when it comes to like the main stakeholder, that would be VP of marketing mostly.
And how does it work with the developer? First of all, what team do they sit on in the company? Are they part of the marketing team, the like overall engineering team?
Yeah, this is a good question. So the situation is similar to mine. They are in engineering, so they have engineering manager. For sure, they have their own meeting of front-end engineers that they can like share their learnings and feedbacks and code reviews. But at the same time, day to day they work with marketing and with me. So it's like kind of similar to mine.
Yeah, it is. That makes sense that you both are in a similar situation there. And what does your collaboration process look like together? How do you work with the developer, and what have you found to be some, I don't know, useful ways of getting, because something we always struggle with as designers, right, is taking the design from our design software to the web, and like, I don't know, there's always something that looks different, but things that you do to minimize any of those differences.
Yeah, I actually think that our relation with developer is super important, and this is something that we as designers should always work. I'm actually in the group that thinks we are designers. We don't have to code. Actually, maybe we shouldn't, but I think that
another hot take.
But I think that it's important for us to know the power and limitation of certain solutions that we come up. So actually, for me, Webflow is a great tool. It's no good tool, but I know what we can do, and I know what is time consuming. I try to loop developers early, so they also can like come up with their own ideas. Like I want the developer to be partially a designer, and I also want me to be partially a developer. So it doesn't mean like I have the code, but there has to be like some overlap. So I try to loop them early. I don't want to have like a waterfall effect that, okay, this is ready designed, this is a package, there you go. Because then developer, they don't know what they are building, why they are building. And I think this is important, that developer is not only like the constructor of something that we do. They should know what problem we are solving, because they have completely different mindset, at least from mine, and they have brand new ideas. They are super creative people. They know the problems, and so yeah, I think this relation is super important, to be open and to not be treated like designers, developers, like cat and dogs. So it shouldn't be that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I think that it's been super valuable for me to work closely with our developer to, understand if something I'm designing is going to add to the build time, then I can be like, well, it's not really that important. We'll take that bit out, or, just it makes a lot of sense. It helps you be more efficient as a design professional, understanding that, I think. Totally agree there. You mentioned to me earlier when we were talking off interview that something that you quite like, or like find like interesting about Buffer, is balancing the personality of the brand with like the business needs as well. Can you tell us a little bit, like, how would you describe the Buffer brand first off, and then talk about that balance a little bit?
Yeah. So when we created a new identity for Buffer, it was like over 2 years ago or so. We wanted something that is professional. I mean, that it builds trust, but at the same time, it's kind of low-key. It's like something that is fun, that is like, I don't know, like you can play with, that's something that you can spend time with. And I think like back then we were targeting mostly social media managers. So they spend a lot of time on social media. So we wanted something that is fun for them, so they are not like tired, bored, and wanted to have like some fun illustration. But at the same time, we didn't want this to be like childish or something. So we wanted to find the right balance of colorful, fun stuff with something that builds trust. I would say when there is like a chart on here you have, I don't know, something super professional that maybe suits for banks, and then you have something super fun. I think we would be somewhere in the middle on this chart.
I see, as I look at the Buffer website, maybe I'm seeing some of the, like, how with Affinity Designer you're able to draw in the same app that you're designing, you know, moving the pixels around in, because we do see some like cool illustrative elements around the place. And I don't know, just from hearing you talk about why you like Affinity Designer, I can see that coming through on the site. Like I can see that you've been able to include more of that stuff, which is really cool.
Great. That's great to hear that it's visible. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It's looking cool. I'm curious to know that, so as a solo designer, something that I always found to be a challenge was just like, there's always more work than I have time available to do it. I don't know. Is that something that you've found as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some ways that you get around that? Like, have you implemented, I don't know, templates where people can self-serve? Is there some sort of process for people to request your help? Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know any other solo designers listening would love advice in this area.
Yeah. So I think the OKRs are super helpful because you have certain goals and you all work towards the same goals. So it's not like everyone is, okay, I have this awesome idea and I will work on that. If that happens, I always ask why, like why you actually want to do that. Does it impact the metrics we all work towards, or what problems does it solve? That would be my advice, to ask why always when you start the project, or someone asks you, like, I don't know, move this image somewhere, but just actually, why do you want me to move it there? It's not like I don't want to do that, but just like, tell me why, so maybe we can find another solution for the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah. And I mean, is it you the one who's weighing up, okay, is this project that someone's asked me to work on, is it going to have more impact on our OKRs than this one over here that I'm already working on with the marketing team? Are you sort of weighing that up and deciding where your priorities should be?
I think this happens to me kind of naturally, because we as marketing designers are in this interesting position that we are touching all of the areas around. So that is like product, it's data, it's development, it's brand design, brand marketing. And me jumping from one area to other area, I just noticed that we have huge gaps, and I just started to communicate that something is off, because I was in the situation like I am the one designer and I should work on everything. So I just started noticing that maybe this project is important for this area, but maybe if we take these resources and move them to the other project that is there, that would be more impactful and efficient for everyone. So it wasn't me deciding like, hey, let's not work on this. I was communicate that with the owner of the project, but also with the managers, like maybe they should take a look at this, because maybe we are focusing on wrong areas. And then the OKRs came, and we still are working on this to make it better and better. I think it happens, but it also needs time.
I like that. I like that you're making use of the fact that, like you said, you are very connected across the company to a lot of different teams and a lot of different projects, and maybe you have more visibility of what's happening than people who are only needing to focus on like what's happening in their stream of work. So yeah, I think that's great to actually make use of that as well. Makes the whole company better, I think. This is why marketing designers are important, you know?
Yes, they are so very important.
What are some other challenges that you face as the solo marketing designer on the team at Buffer? So we talked about like the stream of work and like making connections. Is there anything else you want to call out as a challenge, maybe something you've overcome, something you're still working on?
So definitely filling those gaps was a big problem for me. Because I think as a designers, we should be curious and interested in the areas that are around us. But at the same time, it's super hard, and it was for me, to not take too much on my plate, because then I was like, okay, I understand that, and actually this is fun, I can grow in there, but then I actually was taking too much responsibilities, because then I took too much on the management, too much on the messaging, and I just wanted to fix everything so everyone is happy at work. And because of working in certain areas, I could see more, maybe, that someone who is like just heads down on the one area. So we had also like the situation like this with new positioning. We started to be more focused on small businesses, and we wanted to change the entire messaging.
Right.
But I just didn't know what it means, small business, like small medium business, because when you think about small business or small medium business, it is up to, I think, 500 people or something like,
which I would not consider small.
Yeah,
personally.
but if you like Google what small business is, this is it.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, this is not small for me either. So I didn't know actually what the messaging should be and how we as Buffer solve the problems, because before we were social media company and we were helping social media managers. So that was like a big change for me.
Right, that is quite a change.
And then I didn't know actually what I should design, how the new page should be structured, how the copy should be changed. I was reading a lot how to just like ask enough of why to understand what is the value proposition of Buffer with the new positioning. And I found this book, Story Brand, by Donald Miller. And there's like a great framework for writing this messaging, and it's based on like a story, that you have always a hero, and you have also a guide, and there is something bad happening, and the guide is helping you, and then the author is showing that actually every movie in Hollywood is based on this story, and this is just like it's just like a hook for someone who watched that or reads that. So I was thinking I would try that, and so I ran a few workshops with my teammates, and also I included stakeholders to explain what they mean by we are helping small businesses. And so we started to write the new messages for the home pages, and for the pricing pages, based on that. And this is great because this applies actually to everything. It's great because then you can have like one cohesive story across not only the website, but also all the channels that you can imagine.
Yeah. And I love that you were the one leading out on that as well, identifying it as a problem and making it happen. Like, what I'm hearing is basically you do a lot of things that aren't moving pixels around on a screen.
Yeah, a lot of invisible design.
You're bringing impact in a lot of ways. Yeah, invisible design. I like it. Invisible details. So it sounds like the work you do obviously has a big impact on Buffer. And this not only from the way you contribute across teams, but also from the success metrics as well. Like you said about the homepage, a 20% increase in the MRR is amazing from a new homepage. What is the general attitude towards marketing design in the business at Buffer?
We touch everything because we touch MRR, but we also touch, I think, employer branding too, and also like the branding. And I think that employer branding is something that is actually not that obvious if you think of the role, but we noticed that. For instance, we created a new Buffer identity. I have had many folks reaching out to me, Julia, I finally can share with my family where I work, because like I am finally proud of this, where I work. And so people started to really be proud that they are contributing to something that is great. And it really impacted that. And also like creating the right guidelines or the resources so they can build like basic elements. And then you actually contribute to something that you're not working on, right now.
Yeah.
But this is like great. This is so fulfilling when I see someone used some of the components that I prepared earlier, and they're using it following the guidelines, and this is really on brand, and this is super fulfilling. And also like the engagement of the customers, of course, this also builds trust for our customers and for new customers as well.
I love that. I love that you can like technically have designed something without actually designing it
Yeah,
yourself.
it's a magic.
What sort of things do people build for themselves? Are they building out like full landing pages, like social media assets? I don't know. What have you allowed people to self-service?
I would love for people to build like simple landing pages, and I'm sure that we'll get there soon, but it's not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
I let them build like a simple promo assets for advocacy, team for social media too. They have like basic templates. Sometimes if we have like a new campaigns, they create just one graphic and then they multiplicate it for other resolutions and other stuff.
That's great that they can do that. And are you creating those in Affinity Designer, and are they using Affinity Designer for that?
No, then I use Figma. So I usually just like...
You are forced to use Figma.
Yes.
Yep.
No, this is like a great use case of Figma, and I agree. But it's just like hard for me to produce my work from the start to finish.
Yeah, you feel like you're cheating on Affinity Designer in a way when you have to use Figma. Let's end by talking about something you're most proud of from your time working in marketing design at Buffer.
So for sure that was the new Buffer's identity, because it was a huge. It was we had like really weird website back then. Like every single page looked differently. We didn't have actually shown on what we do. That was all also in a different repository, so you could just see everything was different. The messaging was different, everything. So that was a big project. First to ship that, then to see if they performs well, and then to update all of the other channels that are out there, then to prepare all of the assets, and
it's a big project.
And to teach people how they should use it. So that was big, and that for sure like this increase in monthly recurring revenue was for sure like big, but also we could see it in the service. It comes to like more, I don't know, fresh projects. We are working on a video explainer for a new Buffer that is coming up. That was great. This was something for me to grow as a designer and maybe a bit like an art director, because again, I used the framework of Donald Miller, and the entire was a bit above 1 minute animation / video. And so I created the storyboard, then product marketer helped me with that, and we created a copy. And then we outsourced all of the ready illustrations and all of the storyboard to be animated. And this was like a huge project as well, because it was new to us. And I think the outcome was pretty good. I mean, I'm super satisfied, and I see what I could improve next time, but I think that was definitely great, thinking that we did that almost entirely in-house.
Yeah, that's awesome to have you involved in that level of things as well, you know, in not just the illustrations for the video, but the messaging behind it as well, and the storyboard.
And we had the success
that's a fun skill.
Because we saw...
There we go.
We saw that the engagement of the video was over 75%, and soon we will try also this on the homepage and see if after watching the video conversion rate increases or something like that.
Nice. Okay, well, we're going to have to like hear you report back on that, I think, to tell us how it went, but that's awesome. This has been really great, Yulia. I love hearing about and how a fellow solo designer, you know, gets their work done. And I love hearing about how involved you are in the whole company as well. So thank you for everything you've shared, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hope you enjoyed that episode, everyone. Yulia to me is just like the embodiment of everything you need to be successful as the solo designer on a team. She's got this curiosity and willingness to learn new skill sets and jump in on things that, you know, are going to help make her design work better and fill in gaps. She can think about strategy and not just the pixels that she's putting on the page. Of course, she has a ton of passion for what she does as well. I hope you found it useful to hear about marketing design at Buffer. I would love to hear about any key takeaways that you had from this episode. You can feel free to tweet them to me. I am at Charlie Prangley on Twitter, or leave a comment in the comment section on the YouTube video, because in case you didn't know, Inside Marketing Design is a show available in both video and audio forms, and you can find both by searching for Inside Marketing Design on YouTube or on the podcast app of your choice. If you use Apple Podcasts to listen to the show, or quite frankly, even if you don't, I would really appreciate it if you would leave us a rating and a review. I think there is a severe lack of content around marketing design, around this like non-product side of design and tech. And if you leave a rating and review of the show, it helps us get in front of more people, and hopefully it can help us find more designers like us who are in need of this type of content. I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsor, Webflow. They make the process of designing, building, and launching websites super simple, whether you're making landing pages like Julia is at Buffer, or using it for personal projects, side projects, your portfolio. Check it out at insidemarketingdesign.co/Webflow and give it a try for yourself. You'll find that link in the description/show notes, along with links to where you can find Julia and check out some of her work at Buffer as well. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week for another nerdy deep dive into marketing design.